Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and I got to say, this is a first for me. I'm actually speaking to a wonderful human being, Suzan Peltekian, coming in from Dubai. Dubai. Welcome to the podcast, Susan.
Well, such a joy to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me, Darren. And what a fantastic podcast you have here.
Thank you very much. And for those listening, it was only a small transaction to incentivize Susan saying that, so I do appreciate that. No money has changed hands in this at all. But no, I greatly appreciate it. As we were talking about before we press record, I often focus on this podcast being almost like how authors look at their books. It's not so much not going to make huge amounts of revenue from the selling of the book or from the podcast itself, but it's about education, and they're the conversations that will start and hopefully add value to the community, add value to the leadership community around the world, and we'll end up working with some, and hopefully others will benefit anyway. So
Absolutely.
it's a great privilege to have you on, because we're going to talk today about high performance, because you're a mindset coach and a peak performance coach working with entrepreneurs, business people, high performers all around the world. And you happen to find yourself in Dubai right now. And you run a global business called Charge With Suzan. And as I said to you before we press record, it's very rare, at least for me. My perception of Dubai is like very hot, but blue skies and sunshine. And behind you, it looks like it's just grey and overcast, which reminds people of Melbourne in Australia.
100%. Actually, when I woke up and saw it, because I don't check the weather network here, it's sunny all day, every day, most days. And if it's overcast, it's once. I mean, I just shared with you off camera before we started recording that I've been here a couple months, and it never was like this. And now apparently it's going to be like this for a couple of days. So
Wow.
I had the same reaction when I opened the curtains. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. But I can assure you, Darren, I am in Dubai.
You are, because you said you originally you base yourself in Toronto in Canada, and I thought, wow, Toronto, Canada at this time is at about 11:30, close to midnight on the previous night. So either you're a night owl or you're actually somewhere else in the world, which you happen to be. But you're also saying you're going to spend some time in Europe as well. So truly a global entrepreneur, spending time. What do we call this? The digital nomad?
It can be said. So yeah, I created something called Endless Summers. I'm a lover of the sun, like
Okay.
many are. So I created it through the law of attraction, which is part of what I teach. And I'm like, yeah, tomorrow's not guaranteed, Darren. And let me just pack up and leave. So it's just exactly what I did a couple months ago, and it's
Nice.
been a blast.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'd love to delve into all things mindset, peak performance, and maybe we'll touch on the law of attraction, because I know we spoke also about maybe a little bit different to what the secret teaches in some respects. But before we jump into that, I'd love to know a little bit about, for the benefit of the listeners, your background, because I know you've spent a few years in real estate.
Yes.
And just give us a bit of a background in terms of what you've done around real estate, and what was it that was the catalyst for you moving into what you do now, working with peak performance individuals and businesses?
Well, a great question. Thank you so much again for having me, Darren. It's a joy to be here, and 100% listening. I told you this before we started recording, to your fantastic podcast. You are making a huge impact. So thank you for who you are. The very short story, very short way of saying it, this is the only thing I ever wanted to do. And it's not ironic. I never believed in myself, quite frankly. So I never did it. So from childhood, I went from job to job when I did start working, looking on the outside for the shift instead of knowing that all of the answers within me and that it was literally one decision.
Mm.
I made one decision right before COVID hit. It was 5 years ago, couple weeks, like 5 years that I celebrated Supercharge with Suzan's official, 5 years of coaching. And I had, with one decision, retired from real estate and but through the law of attraction and mindset, attracted the number one Remax worldwide, which apparently happens to be a Canadian Remax,
Hmm.
which apparently happens to be a Remax that I had interviewed and not worked with. The owner filled up all my spots during COVID. They're exceptional. Talking of exceptional sales leaders, exceptional leaders, they're truly exceptional. And that's how it all started with me actually finally making a decision right before COVID that this is all I want. It's my divine purpose and childhood dream. And here we are 5 years later in Australia without leaving the hotel in Dubai.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it was all you ever wanted to do. Um, I often like to talk about the environments we grow up in, the environments we find ourselves in, and who we surround ourselves with. Was there an early mentor or model that encouraged you, or I guess opened the door for what was possible? And it, it must have been how old were you when you actually kind of made that decision? This is what I want to do.
Two fantastic questions. The age I don't remember. I've been asked this before and I've done a lot of work. I can't inner work. I can't seem to remember the age. That's all I remember, that ever since I've known, this is truly what I've wanted to do. Mentors at the beginning, no, because I have been, let me correct that, a late bloomer. Like a lot of people who come to my master classes, I tell them the full story. I'm a graduate of the University of Toronto, but my degree was in drinking. You were wondering, like, is she a late owl? No, she wakes up very early to see her trainer. I hired a trainer day zero when I arrived here at the hotel, right? But I used to wake up at noon at University of Toronto during my drinking days. So quite a shift in lifestyle there and who I have become. And my dad, I would say, Darren, till today, has been the one person who has always, despite everything, always believed in me. So not a mentor in terms of coaches, which then when I did start the inner work over a decade ago has been the game changer, if you will.
Mm.
But before mentors, my dad, past, present, future, always. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And this is obviously this is a podcast that's listened to by lots of sales leaders, lots of sales people, but also people who are not in sales. But a lot of the principles we talk about have applicability, whether you're a parent, whether you're a school captain, whether you play sport, whether you're leading a team, whatever. What I'd love to know is in your career, because you spent about 6 or 7 years in real estate uh, in Toronto. What were some of the key lessons in that? Because a lot of people feel when I talk to them about sales and they have this perception of sales, one of the two, I guess, industries that pop up is used car sales and real estate sales, right? As
Yes.
the quintessential pushy salesperson. Now, I know for a fact, having been in sales for over 20 years, there are lots of very successful, very ethical uh, salespeople in both of those industries, right? So it's a bit of a generalization. But I'd love to know what did that experience teach you about yourself, but also the art of selling and influence.
Wow, I love this question. I don't know if I've been asked this particular one before. This is fantastic. And I love how you said whatever people are doing. So I don't teach a thing. I'll answer this in reverse, Darren. I don't teach a thing about motherhood. I have chosen not to become a parent, right? Uh, Mothers and fathers coming to me to thank me for, so because the average person who works with me within months, they have quadrupled their income. Some have only doubled, some haven't, some have tripled, some have 5x. A lot have turned their yearly into their monthly and when rinsing and repeating. But the number one thing that I get the most thank yous for is who they've become. And that is basically the model of be, do, have, which, by
Mm.
the way, none of what I teach are mine. One of my mentors, Bob Proctor, would say that he doesn't have other, bragging rights. I don't either. And that's the model that whoever is listening to right this minute, Darren, can literally step into it right now. It took me, by the way, years to actually get that. And I'll explain the be do have by explaining the two bankrupt models of have do be and do
Hmm.
have be. And most of us are living in the conditional have do be when I have, I will be, right?
Yes.
Or the busy be. And I was, for the majority of my life, I live in the biggest glass house, by the way. This is a zero judgment zone, engaged in both those bankrupt models, if you will. Not understanding. It took me 8 months to get that first listing, right? And it was always because I was looking outside instead of looking inside. And when I got that and the getting, I know all our listeners are super intelligent. I don't need to meet anyone to know they are because of what I shared with you before we started recording. I believe everyone is this universe's highest form of creation, God's highest form of creation, right? So it is a getting, not here in the conscious mind, which results in 2 to 5% of our results, but in our heart of hearts, in our body, in our subconscious mind,
Mm.
right? Who we are. So in essence, who everyone is, until they gain, and some of us may not have that awareness yet, is that you are it. You are this universe's highest form of creation. You are pure divine love. Love serves. So I love how you asked that question because wherever you are in the world, yeah, or a used car salesman or a realtor, right? And the ones that are doing really, really, really well are looking to serve. Love is service. Leadership is service. We are servants. We're here to develop ourselves, if you will, so that I'm getting goosebumps. And we can only get rich by enriching others, by bringing value to our mankind. And it's not,
Mm.
it was all about getting a listing at the time. Look, I was looking to get instead of actually become. So it's be, do, have. And then I reversed that script when I finally took me a while to learn the be, do, have model, which is available to all of us millisecond by millisecond, right? From that powerful beingness, who we truly are, Darren, we do what? Take inspired action. That's
Yep.
service. Not
Yep.
let me make 100 calls, which I done 100 cold calls in a day, 200 in a day, no results. And then I flipped it by saying I'd be on a Google Hangout, similar to our Zoom call here in your fabulous podcast, but it was all us realtors calling at the same time. And I'd be like, watch out, guys, this first call is going to be a listing. And sure enough, it would be. That's the power everyone listening in has. Especially if I can do it first 8 months, no listings, trying to catch my imaginary tail to actually stepping into a beingness and what one may be asking, being what, Susan? Being of service,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Being a
Love it.
true leader, being an exceptional leader,
Yeah.
and equating sales to service,
Mm.
because that's what it truly is. If I'm not out here to see what can I get from Darren versus, hey, how can I serve him, and how can I serve his podcast, and how can I serve his audience, because his audience is truly mine. We are all
Yeah.
one.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
It's it's a really interesting, and I'm a big fan of Bob, and I've been following him for years and years and years. And I have a number of colleagues, one of which is a dear friend. If she's listening to this, shout out to Tanya, who's in Las Vegas, who's an Aussie. She's a big, she's a big proponent, and she talks a lot about thinking into results. So, and one of Bob's programs, which is phenomenal. I want to touch on the being part because I often, when I work with leaders, I often talk about the fact that you guys as leaders, and you'd be the same in the environments that you work in, the people have a long list of things to do, right? So they tend to focus on, I need to do this, I need to take this action. But very seldom do they sit back and think, well, who do I need to be in this particular moment, in this environment, in order to enable me to take that inspired action that hopefully will then get a result, right? Or at least lead to a result. So from the being part, because that's probably the hardest part, is the work that we do on ourselves. Are there some key things that you've discovered or you've worked on and that you work with clients in how to actually really not just consciously do this, but really become the person that you're destined or born to become that will enable you to then take that action?
100%, 100%, because thoughts are things, and I used to think all of this is woo until I got into it. Everything is energy. Energy can't be created nor destroyed. It always was, it always will be. It's just changing form, and the simplest way of explaining it is water
Yeah.
can become ice. It just changes form. So, and there are infinite realities there and happening at the same time. So we can actually quantum jump, and I won't get into the details of that, but what it is actually having that awareness. And that's what I learned from Bob. I didn't know. So the difference between um, the janitor at a five-star resort you stay at with your family versus the owner of that resort is one word: awareness. And it's gaining that awareness. So I would invite for all our precious listeners to first and foremost get super clear on what it is that you want. That's the most important thing. If you do nothing, and this is what I was sharing, Darren, before we started recording, is that I believe everyone is God's highest form of creation, and how much since childhood I've been wanting, to pursue this divine purpose of rah, let's get on the stage, let's, get people going. And, I've been given a voice, and I'm quite loud. It travels, right? And then when I learned from Bob that, well, from Zig Ziglar, that motivation doesn't last. So yes, there's an aspect of rah in my beingness that rah-rahs people, but you got to come back, right?
Mm.
Versus what Bob teaches is that you are God's highest form of creation. And please, for whoever's listening in, if you don't believe in God, I've come up with the word Gus, God, universe, spirit,
Yeah.
and none of them are mine again. I've heard it somewhere. So not to be stopped by any words, that you are basically David, Michelangelo's David, and our work is all chipping away to become. So that becoming is first being crystal clear on what we want.
Mm.
From there, there's a caveat. We don't get what we want. We get who we're being, Darren. That's the
Yes.
big thing. So when I learned from him that, oh my God, the only prerequisite to having it all is knowing what I want. How many of us grew up learning that? The only prerequisite to having it all is knowing what we want. And yet what I found, Darren, most leaders, and I coach real high performers, as you said, like much like yourself, we're in um, what I saw was a lot of people at the beginning don't know what they want, or they're not present to it. Like it's pie in the sky, and it's
Yeah.
not pie in the sky. If God planted that in you, that's it. It's there for you to actually become that individual, which
Mm.
it sounds almost inaccurate to say, because you are him already with the capital H. It's literally to unbecome by chipping away the layers that they put on us, the subconscious conditioning, if you will, so that you can become aware of the exquisite you, the magical you that is the true you,
Mm.
right? The masterpiece, if you will. So first step is the vision, the want, and then from there is we create our self-image. And many I may have heard it said differently. It's self-concept, identity. We literally, identity is everything, and it is basically our results are limited by what our identity is. And lucky for us, and for whoever is listening in, there is no limit. Sky isn't the limit. That sky is an illusion, right? We can change our identity. So who I think I am, like I shared with you, I did many other jobs because I didn't believe in myself. That was my identity. I even became a realtor, which I quite enjoyed. It was very nice once I learned the beat. You have get 1 minute you're a complete stranger, the next moment you're with a cold call, right? Because that's how I
Yeah.
created my business. The next minute you're in their biggest, and most of the time their only asset, and they're
Mm.
welcoming you in, and you become part of their family. It was such a great experience, but this is what I wanted to do. And I didn't believe, and that was part of my identity, Darren, that
Mm.
I worked on to have the awareness that, wait a minute, I am, right? We can laugh about it now.
Well, we can, and you mentioned a couple of times that this is not woo-woo, but I do know, and even from personal experience, there's a lot of people out there that look at it as saying woo-woo, right? Because you look at the law of attraction and look at the Secret movie that came out of which Bob played a big part in that. one of the things that was a great marketing exercise for the movie and the book and so forth. But and I heard Bob talk about this before he passed, that one of the big things that was missing was it was missing that action piece, right? Because it created the perception that if you just manifest stuff, you can manifest. If you think about things, you wish for a bicycle, you can get a bicycle, or manifest some checks in the mail, you'll get checks in the mail and stuff like that. Then there has to be some action. So that the next part of that is the action part, which has to be congruent with who you are being. So, what do you say to people? Because I'm sure you come up against people, come up against people to say, Susan, this is a lot of codswallop, as they say in Australia, right? You cannot possibly tell me that you can be whoever it is that you want to be. You don't understand my predicament. You don't understand my background. What do you say to those people? Because I've got a certain belief around that, but I'd love your take on that.
Yes, and I'd love yours. And this is such a fun question. Thank you, Darren. Um, I love what you asked there, because we're not sitting around. If we are, and you use the word congruent, which I was going to say alignment, right? If we are indeed in alignment, Darren, we don't want to sleep until noon like I did. I wasn't in alignment. If we're in alignment and no judgment for whoever is drinking, I wouldn't be drinking 20 drinks and getting a degree in drinking. I was obviously not in alignment, right? So and the word law of attraction, in the word, there's action. We
Mm,
would want to be, I mean, we would be actually first and foremost having the awareness that we're here.
mm,
I always thought, oh, I'm a spiritual being, a human that is who is spiritual, not understanding that no, 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 we are limitless souls that are here to have a human experience for a brief, literally moment, right? And our work to literally get the goal, if you will, is to become. The only way we can actually get the goal, and I would actually stop using the word get, because it's not a piece of meat we're trying to get. It's the becoming, right?
yeah,
So, and that's the only way we can truly. So it's by service, and that's us becoming. So how can you actually crush your goals or create your goals or become aware of them, is by becoming that person. Well, you
mm,
don't become that person by sitting all day. That person wants to serve, right? And it doesn't mean hustle and grind though. So I'd like to speak to that. So many, like in our culture, think that we got to now go and work, like the do busy bee part, which I was involved in, right? It's like,
yeah,
oh my goodness, right? Call Money Mondays is what we call them now. I call them Manifest Mondays, which is quite an irony. I just realized it. Thank you for that. Um, this conversation brought that to my awareness. It's We're constantly and consistently manifesting there, and all of this is backed up by neuroscience. But what are we manifesting? We're not manifesting, back to what I said, what we want. We're manifesting who we're being. So if in my beingness, all I want to do is laze around, eat chips all day, which by the way, my ego, my paradigm, all it wants to do is eat, drink, party, eat, drink, sleep. That's all it wants to do. It's the limitless soul that we're tapped into that actually wants to, yeah, wake up earlier, or on purpose have this booked on a day where I don't have my trainer, so I can work around my normal workout schedule and have that and be here and serve my
yep.
purpose, which, right? So it's tapping into that. Does that answer, and or shall I go about a different
No,
way?
no. It makes sense because as you were talking, I remember another great American philosopher, Jim Rohn, who always used to talk about the fact that it's not the success being the destination. We've all heard that, but it's the person you become along the way that gives you, I guess, the responsibility that it takes to be a person worthy of the success that is bestowed upon you, right? So it's all about, well, it's not what you get, it's who you become. Because who you become enables you to get what you get, but then in order to get to the next level, you've got to become something different in order to be ready to accept the responsibility that comes with that level as well.
100%. And I love that you mentioned I love Jim Rohn and his work. And truly, if we just get that, Darren, what you said there is gold, right? Because we all think, no, it's that. I want
Yeah.
that. And it's something
Yeah.
again out there. And that's the irony also of the law of attraction, or of us being humans, is that we're trying to get that. It's never about the goal. It's actually the feeling that that goal would give us. And the irony is, if we actually felt it now,
Yeah.
we would attract it, and not just by sitting down, because most can't feel good just sitting down. We're here to serve our mankind.
Mm,
That's right.
totally. Totally.
Thank you.
So one of the things and my take on all this is there'll be people that throw stones, they'll throw, this is rubbish and this is it's their perception, it's their frame of reference, right? The fact is that there are people in the world because everybody's got 24 hours, right?
Yes.
Richard Branson has 24 hours, Elon Musk has 24 hours, Donald Trump has 24 hours. It's the way we actually utilize those 24 hours, who we surround ourselves, but the thinking we have as we go and do things. So one of the things I want to try to dispel here is people listening to this might think, and if you've listened to The Secret or saw anything around the law of attraction, the danger is we can actually listen to the external noise. And when I say external noise, it's things like TikTok, Instagram, all the influencers on those platforms. It's the media saying, "Hey, have this. Don't have to work for it. Get this now, and it's all good, etc., etc." There is work involved, right? So, can you just talk about the work that you do with your clients in terms of how challenging can it be for some to chip away at that statue of David to the point where you are revealing who you are destined to be? Because it's not just an overnight thing. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm also saying it's not difficult, but there is a process to go through.
Yes, 100%. And Darren, what I would invite our precious listeners is not to believe a word I'm saying, but to actually stop and think for themselves. Steve Jobs has said we can only connect the dots looking backwards. So look at any area of your life that is thriving and just look backwards and try to pinpoint what your thoughts are. You'll see what your predominant thoughts are about it.
Mm,
And look at any area, for example, that isn't working as well or that isn't working at all, right?
mm,
And we all as humans have areas that are thriving, areas that aren't so much. And that I love how you mentioned that with the unbecoming, it's a forever thing until our last breath. We're always, I mean, we're limitless souls, right? There is a version of us that today we're at our best version, but tomorrow we're going to be better and
mm,
better. So what I've created is a mind gym, and I've been as a realtor with multiple coaches that are fantastic. And as mentioned, Bob Proctor, he's one of many coaches, coaching companies that I've been coached by. Many, I heavily invest in myself because I believe I'm my biggest asset, just like I believe everyone is their biggest asset. And above that, I believe that our mind is our biggest asset. That's the biggest
mm,
real estate, the one between our two ears. And for most, unfortunately, it's working against them. So awareness is key, as Bob says, and the only difference between each one of us is awareness. So my work is to grow my awareness every day so that we can raise the conscious awareness of our precious one planet, one precious soul at a time, if you will. So what I have created, although I've loved all of the other coaching, is a mind gym. So just like I told you on day zero, I get here and I hire a trainer. I've had a trainer for over 20 plus years now. It's training this. And we're
mm,
doing it literally daily. I mean, in Canada, it was a long weekend. So I was off from my peak performers. I'm elated to be back today with them. So it'll be my afternoon, it'll be their morning. We're constantly working on creating that shift consciously, but also subconsciously. And that's the biggest part, Darren, for
mm,
whoever's listening in, is because they may look around and say, well, no, I have great thoughts about money or about love consciously. And I mentioned earlier that only 2 to 5% of our results is coming from the conscious mind. 95 to 98% is coming from the subconscious, from our
yeah,
body, from our heart of hearts, from our programming. And that's the deep work that will create the biggest shift, because then we're actually shifting our identity and our
mm,
self-concept. So that is what we get to do, the mind gym, which is something that I'm super stoked about. That's daily coaching. But for those that aren't wanting to dive into the deep end with me, and that's with me daily on Zoom live, I've created Manifest Mondays, which gets them all ready for the week every Monday. So that's what that we get to do conscious work through daily studying, but also subconscious programming.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, it does take work. It's not something you can just click your fingers and all of a sudden you become the new person, right? So from a practical, tactical perspective, because I'll be interested in the work you do with peak performers in particular, in
Yes.
terms of is it a set of affirmations they have? Is it a mantra that they use? It's something like Bob used to have a card that he'd read morning and night every single day, and he'd have a mantra that he were talking about constantly as
Yeah.
well. So, what sort of tactics? Because people listen to this and saying, "Well, this sounds fantastic." I really believe I've got potential to be the number one salesperson. I've got potential to be the number one area manager, whatever the case might be. But I don't seem to be able to just get that next step. I feel as if there's a barrier that I need to push through, right?
Yes, this is a fantastic question. Whoever is listening to your fantastic podcast should definitely do work with you. They don't only have the potential, Darren. They are literally it, and not Susan being bubbly and motivational. It's literally Susan being aware of the magic that is you. I would, so there are multiple things that we do. It really starts with step number one, which is what they want. So I would really today, not tomorrow, right as or whenever this podcast airs, right? They'll right away get to the vision.
Mm.
And if the vision is too hard, get with the want list, because that is number one. And then number two, write a short paragraph of who what kind of version of yourself could fulfill or would be fulfilling on that vision, right? Number three, I would take this up, and I don't have any stocks in the app called ThinkUp. You may have heard of it, Darren. I've referred a lot of business to them, and it doesn't have to be ThinkUp. That's the one that I have that I am aware of. There are apparently other ones. So it's basically an app that has you put your affirmations on auto loop, and you can listen to it all day, all night. So I would literally record my vision separately, then record my self-image separately, and listen to both. Ideally, you're listening to them all day, every day in the background, because the subconscious never sleeps, or at
Yeah.
night when you fall asleep. But what you also can do, and I invite precious souls to do, is look at the mirror. Mirror work is super powerful. Look at the mirror. You're looking at the window of your soul, you're talking to your subconscious, and not repeat these as a doing, back to the be do have. It's a beingness.
Mm.
So the beingness is also the emotional mind, is the subconscious mind, is to actually feel that with emotion.
Yeah.
And so feeling it in front of the mirror and chanting it out loud. Of course, Bob's goal card is something that I highly recommend, is to basically take from your vision one thing, one goal, whatever your annual income is or monthly income is, and literally touch it all day, put it under your pillow, touch it the last thing at night, because that and feel that, and sleep with both. So first thing in the morning, if you've done Bob's work, you know this very well. First thing in the morning and last thing at night, when we're in that groggiest state, what are most of us are doing? Oh no, not another day. Or oh man, we keep looking at the alarm. I'm gonna get 4 hours, 3 hours. No, no, right. Or we've done so many great things, Darren, in a day. All we're thinking about is the one thing that didn't go our way. So the biggest prayer is not asking, it's thank you. This is from
Mm.
Neville Goddard, one of my favorites. So actually using without, this isn't, notice, without doing much. You write your vision once. Yes, that's going
Mm.
to require something. But then as you're flowing about your day, listen to it. You write your self-image once, go to the mirror and chant it out loud with emotion. Now, if you want to supercharge that further, put your favorite music, a high vibe music, high vibrational, right? And through music, usually one song is 3 minutes long. Just chant it. And then after that, really take advantage. Notice this doesn't take any time. Also, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, instead of right? First thing, thank you. Wow, who do I get to be today? How can I get to serve with utmost love? And you're laughing, and it's really, I looked this positive, Darren. It was all toxic positivity. I wasn't. The
Yep.
work really works when we're working it.
Yep.
And it's so easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. So I would take advantage of, excuse me, I was saying our groggiest time, first thing in the morning and last thing at night, to actually program ourselves, because although the subconscious is always awake, it's at its most receptive at those times.
Yes.
And then, thank you, literally living in gratitude. A lot of us are, and I'm guilty, I was guilty as charged. I had so many journals, gratitude, get up and do, right. It's not a doingness. Again, it's a beingness. Are we grateful for being alive this morning? Are we grateful that we get to be of service? Are we grateful that today's our masterpiece and that we are masterpieces and that we get to co-create? uh,
Yep.
right? So these are just some, and I can go on and on, but
Well, it's music to my ears because this is what separates the high performers from the not so high performers, and dare I say it, the people that are struggling who externalize blame for everything that happens in their career, their business, their life. The fact is, we are in charge of our own destiny, right? So it's important as to who we choose to surround ourselves with, but it's also really important to be conscious of the messaging and the story that we tell ourselves because we are with ourselves 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as you rightly said, the vast majority of the communication that we communicate is subconscious or unconscious, right? Because it's always ticking, right? So I say to leaders all the time, are you aware of the story that you're running? And once you become aware of that story, ask the question, is that story serving you, but not so you can be like the best salesperson in the world or the best sales leader, but is that affecting you, which is affecting your ability to serve others? Because your whole purpose for being a sales leader is to serve others and help develop other people. It's not about you. But in order to do that, you've got to really dial in on what's happening up here in terms of your thought patterns and what sort of story you're running, what sort of strategy you're running.
100%, 100%. I'm in 100% alignment with you, Darren, and that is just delicious what you just shared there. I'm
Delicious.
Yes,
Delicious.
yes, yes, truly. You not see that in Australia.
I haven't heard that term delicious. We term delicious in terms of food, but not I've never heard it in terms of the words.
It's very divine. I love it. Thank you for that. I'm glad you're laughing.
Man,
And
man.
actually, that's part of the supercharge shifters. I'm grateful that this happened organically. Thank you. You have such a beautiful sense of humor. I love it. Is to actually not take things too seriously. We take ourselves way too seriously. And by we, I mean I did most, right? It's a passing moment that we're here for. Let's bring joy and fun to our day.
Yeah,
Yeah, go on.
yeah.
You seem to
No, no.
be.
It's as you were talking, I'm thinking of a story as we talked about before we press record. I got the pleasure of and the privilege of being in Vegas before Christmas. And we met Stephen, and if Stephen's listening, yeah, I love you too, my friend. Um,
Hello, Stephen.
but
If you're
just to the point of not taking yourself too seriously, people who are keynote presenters, run conferences, do sales training, do podcasts, do some sort of public speech, whatever the case might be. It's very easy to get caught up in the nervousness of, oh my God, I hope I'm okay. Hope I'm going to be delivering the great message. We did 3 days of training for a global company called Adobe, and it was an absolute privilege to be with them. And on the third day, I don't know what it was. It might have been the change of time or the change of temperature, but my voice was starting to crack, and it reminded me of when I was a teenager going through puberty, right? Where your voice cracks. I would start on the third day, and nothing would come out, or it would come out with good morning, everybody. And I couldn't speak. And I had people who were concerned, and they got me, lemon tea and honey elixirs and stuff like that, which was phenomenal because they were serving. But the lesson was, you know what? I didn't let that impact me. It would have impacted me at least even 5 years before because it was such an important event. And I wanted to do so well for them to serve them but I couldn't control that, right? But what I could do was make it mean something. And what I made it mean was, you know what? We're just going to rock through this. We're going to have some fun, and I'm going to laugh at myself, but it's not going to detract from the message. And what I thought of was, how can I use this as a lesson to teach others that when things don't go your way, how do you make lemonade out of a lemon?
I told you I love your attitude. I didn't say it in those words, but your sense of humor on that specific podcast that I heard you with Stephen pulling a prank on you. I said to you before we started the recording, I just attitude is truly everything, and you have, a radiant, a beautiful attitude, Darren, and it just beams, So I love that you said that about your voice, and look, you got to see people who wanted to serve, but you actually did create such a space, and you made a much bigger impact because you chose to actually be your most powerful self, given whatever the circumstance was. And that's one of the biggest things that I would invite. You said earlier, how people blame, and I played the lame blame game for most of my life. So, right, again, zero judgment zone, right? And it's so easy to say, yes, it's the spouse, it's the ex, it's the kids, it's the economy, it's the government, it's this election, it's that election, and that is part of the conditioning. So whoever
Yeah.
doesn't believe full circle, in the law of attraction and in this stuff, it's like, look around. What are your subconscious conditionings? What is your subconscious conditioning that you're not even aware of? It's
Mm,
like fish in water. Your awareness grows a little bit. We may go into a bigger tank. My job with all my precious peak performers worldwide, for whoever's listening in, is to let's build those wings so that we can fly out of and create our lives by design, as you said. And I love what you said there also about how you created your own meaning,
mm.
and that it's all a story. We
It is.
basically we get thank you to rewrite, literally co-author our lives. We are doing it anyway. We're
Yeah.
constantly manifesting. By the way, those who come to me want to manifest more money most of the time, and I'm like, you're already manifesting. Let's manifest by design, through by creating it,
Yeah.
versus through whatever the programming is. If you will, you're laughing, you can resonate
Totally.
more,
Totally.
right? Yeah.
Totally. Because as soon as you take the lid off, it becomes infinite potential.
It's the word. It is indeed the reality of
Yeah.
what is possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Susan, it's been a fantastic conversation. As we bring this to a close, um, is there a key for peak performers listening to this, right? Who thinking, all right, I reckon there's something there, but I'm not quite sure that I can put my finger on it, or they're not quite sure as to what they actually want. Because the first step, obviously, is to design what you want, what's your vision. Um, is there something that they can do that enables them to at least make progress to identifying or opening I guess, the door a little bit wider to see that things are possible, that I can create something and overcome, if you like, or deprogram some of the programming that perhaps has been instilled by environmental factors, people closest to them, or their business that they're operating in, or the manager that's saying, hey, you need to do this and that. Is there any key final words of wisdom that might help somebody do something as of today or tomorrow to help them at least get a little bit clearer on what it is they actually want?
I want to make sure it's impactful notice. Um, I would, first and foremost, if they're here listening to your fantastic podcast, there are no coincidences. Again, I learned this from Bob. I thought, oh, there are coincidences, right? They're here that, we're infinite spirit. Spirit is for expansion. They're here because, and if they have that desire that is implanted in them, it must come to pass by law, and it's by continually tuning in. You don't
Mm,
go to the gym one day, so not to listen to you once and then, oh well, this isn't for me. I live from the outside in. Hey, I live from the outside in for the majority of my life, and right now my paradigm wants me to go back and live from there. It's like constant practice, if you will,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I would you said earlier something beautiful about all of the chatter, IG, this, that. I would turn off the chatter. I would go inwards. There's such a magical place inwards. And really know that if you don't take the pen and write the way you want your life to go, it's all made up. It's all a
Yeah.
story. And if you're not taking that, it's going to be done for you. It's already done, by the way. The
Yeah.
programming is complete, right? So I would invite those who are having a very hard time to write. So the vision is from the time you wake up, Darren, to the time you go to bed, the ideal day of if there were no time considerations, no money considerations, no relationship considerations, what would Darren be doing? Who would you be serving? What contribution would you be making to our mankind? And literally write, but turn off the phones. These are big distractions, right? It's on D&D and it's on silent, right? Uh, Turn off the phones, take a nice cup of coffee, tea, whatever your drink of choice is, right? And sit by the beach, by the water, in your balcony, in your backyard, somewhere that where you feel inspired, and really put pen to paper. And if that is too difficult, you can't go back to your 5-year-old self to actually be dreamy because we were all born that way. We were
Yeah.
born in the perfect vibration. We knew what we wanted. And then we were told, no, just shut up and sit at the corner or a version of that, right? To actually write a list of 100 things that you want,
Mm.
1,000 things that you want. Start with 10. And then when you write that list, write your self image. That's it. Know that if you have the want, it must come to pass. You have to create the want. If you're
Mm.
not clear, you're going to get dingly dangly thing here and there and everywhere, right? So being crystal clear on what they want would be the first thing. And to know that if you were put on planet Earth and listening to this fantastic young man's podcast, you were put here, you are made for more.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
you're made in his image. You are this universe's highest form of creation. Go out there and create your masterpiece because you are one.
Well, it's a great way to finish because I think, and the only thing I'd add to that is because of our programming, we tend to put lids on our capability and lids on our potential. And I know for a fact, and I know this because it's happened to me and it's happened to people that I've worked with, that when we're writing down things that we want, part of us is thinking, that's ridiculous. I don't deserve that. I can't have that. That's a pipe dream. Who do you think you are? That is the programming speaking. You've got to overcome that. And the only way to overcome that is to continue to build the muscle around writing down what it is that you want and do it through an attitude and a belief system of if I have that, if I can achieve that, how many more people can I help? How many more people can I serve? How many more people can I have an impact on in an ethical way? That's the thing, right? Because if you're not doing that, then potentially you're going to be a grave disservice to your business, to your team, to your customer base, to your community, to your country, to the world.
Brilliantly said, Darren, and I love, and I didn't speak to that. Repetition is key, as you know, right? So it's repeating this day in, day out, and coming from the wish fulfilled. So from the goal, instead of thinking of it as something outside, have that goal card and act like that person, uh,
Mm.
as if you already have it. That
Yes,
is fantastic. Thank you for that. That is just fantastic. I love it.
brilliant,
Um, Yes,
brilliant.
and repetition, just like we learn how to ride a bike. That is the
Yeah.
key. I know we're out of time. I just thank you so much for having me.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure coming in all the way from Dubai. Suzan, for people listening to this who'd like to know more about you, who'd like to connect with you, and find out more about what you do, where's the best place for them to do so?
Thank you, Darren. I'm on Supercharge with Suzan at Supercharge with Suzan on IG. Um, we'll be doing lots of freebies as well. I do free lives to answer any questions around mindset there. Free Facebook group, free masterclass coming up in a couple months. It's available worldwide, as you mentioned. And last thoughts, Darren, I love what you said there. It is actually our, not only will we be doing a disservice, I truly believe it's our duty, privilege, and responsibility to ourselves, yes, but also to our families, our communities at large, our country, as you said, and our human race, quite
Mm.
frankly. So thank you. I love how you think.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we've probably had very similar teachers. So it's very, and hey, who would have thought? We've just been connected through the power of a certain networking tool, but hey, no, nothing happens by chance.
Thank you so
Brilliant.
much for the brilliant work you're doing worldwide and for who you are. I really honor you. Thank you, Darren.
Thanks, Susan. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
I joy.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.